This is David Bell, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. You're listening to the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast.
And welcome in to the Best Bell Fantasy Football Podcast and live stream. My name is Bradley Stalder, and you can follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. If you like the content that I put out tonight, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Appreciate you doing that. Follow me, give the 5 stars on the podcast, and yeah, we're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to talk about waivers and wires. I'm going to give you 12 players that you must add for Week 9. You must add, depending upon your league size and league requirements, but you must add them. That's what you must do. The first player that you need to add is Rondale Moore, wide receiver, Arizona Cardinals. Now, Rondale Moore, yes, he was cold in Week 7, but in Week 8, 7 receptions, 92 yards. Yes, his longest reception was 38 yards. Take that away, and you still have a 54-yard game on 6 catches, 9 yards per catch. He also had 2 rush attempts in this game, finally getting positive rushing. He finished with 19.9 half-point PPR points, and 3 of the last 4 games, 8 targets for Rondale Moore. He is playing starters snaps. He is the wide receiver 2, playing behind DeAndre Hopkins. The Arizona Cardinals, they've been playing from behind a lot lately, and they've been looking to DeAndre Hopkins, of course, their wide receiver 1, but also to Rondale Moore, who against Minnesota, Week 8, 8 targets, 92 yards, and a reception, and a touchdown reception. This was his best game of the season. If you remember last year, though, Rondale Moore had some nice blow-up games as well. He finished as the wide receiver 6th in Week 2. He had a couple top 25 finishes. Week 11, 16.1 fantasy points against Seattle. And then this year, started to pick it up a little bit. Started slow at the beginning of the year with the injury, and now weeks 4, 5, 6, and 7, picking it up, playing 80, 90% of snaps pretty much every week. Rondale Moore needs to be rostered. He's currently rostered in, my thing went away. He's currently rostered in 41% of your leagues. So Rondale Moore is a target for you, should be a target. Next, running back, Tyler Allgeier. Tyler Allgeier of the Atlanta Falcons, rookie 5th round pick, 151st overall to the Falcons. And he just has been getting the volume, the rushing volume since Week 2. He's had all but one of his games that he's played in double-digit carries. Now, what was nice about this week in Week 8 wasn't just that Tyler Allgeier got the rushing volume. He got 14 rushes, didn't do much with them, 39 rushing yards. He's not been super efficient on the ground. But what we like to see is the receiving game, and he got 3 targets in this game. When Marcus Mariota was willing to push the ball, Tyler Allgeier delivered 16 fantasy points. And Allgeier, I don't know why I'm having so many difficulties during this live stream, but here we are out of BYU. And if we look at what he had done at BYU, 2 straight seasons of 1,100 rushing yards. Obviously, the NFL is much more difficult than BYU's schedule, but still, what was encouraging to see out of the Atlanta Falcons offense this past week was 3 targets, and he had a 10% target share last season at BYU, age 21, really young guy, and not super speedy, not super fast, not bursty, nothing really special about him as a prospect, but he has been getting the volume. And if you are looking for a running back 3, you're desperate at running back, you're going to get volume from Tyler Allgeier. He's been getting double-digit carries pretty much every game that he stepped on the field for the Atlanta Falcons. The next player I want to tell you to add for week 9, Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, he had some big games earlier this season, right? He had 26 fantasy points week 2 against Cleveland. He had 9 fantasy points week 3 on 11 targets. He just didn't come down, with the touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns that week too. However, what was really encouraging was his 7 targets back with Zach Wilson at quarterback. This was the first big game for Garrett Wilson since Zach Wilson was the quarterback, 14.5 fantasy points, and that was against New England. Now, remember, Garrett Wilson, former first-round pick, he's been playing ahead of Elijah Moore. Not surprising given the pedigree. Garrett Wilson, the 10th overall pick in this past year's rookie draft. But what's really encouraging for Garrett Wilson was going into week 8, a 28.7% target rate. That means, if he was running routes on the field more than a quarter of the time, he was getting the ball passed to him. And that was 14th going into week 8 among all wide receivers. And then to get 7 more targets in this game, that's a good sign for you to pick up Garrett Wilson. He's currently 60% rostered, although it depends on the size of your league. Garrett Wilson may have been dropped in a few leagues. So check your waiver wires. Make sure that Garrett Wilson is not just hanging out there for you. The next must-add player for week 9, Kenyon Drake. Now, I had been talking about Kenyon Drake a lot, mostly because of his wide range of outcomes, right? His wide range of outcomes included the running back 50 a couple times and a top 15 back the other times, And so we want to start targeting this volume moving forward as long as Gus Edwards is still dealing with that hamstring issue. Now, the first word is that it's not a major hamstring issue. It doesn't look like Gus Edwards is going to be out for a long time, but it didn't matter. Gus Edwards had double-digit carries in this game, and Kenyon Drake still came away with double-digit fantasy points as well. Okay, in week 8 against Tampa, Kenyon Drake, 7 carries, 62 yards, 4 receptions, 4 targets, 5 receiving yards. He did have the touchdown. Now, do I think that some of those targets were due to the fact that Mark Andrews was out in this game? I do. I think 2 of those 4 approximately would have been, going toward Mark Andrews, but it's still encouraging to see the high level of rushing efficiency from Kenyon Drake. 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's had 11.9 and 8.9 yards per carry. And especially against the Tampa Bay defense, that's been a real positive here. So Kenyon Drake is a running back you should make sure is not on your waiver wire. Pick him up, especially if you need some running back help in week 9, right? Omar Rios, great content. Keep them coming. Thank you, Omar. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe button as well. Turn on the notifications. I'll be chopping up these links for you so you can rewatch if you want. You don't have to scroll through the entire thing. You can pick out the players you like. Okay. Thoughts on DJ Moore as a solidified starter for next week? He's a flex play. Let's look at what DJ Moore's schedule is looking like over the next few weeks. Okay. So DJ Moore, we just got the final out of Cleveland. The Browns crushed him, by the way. DJ Moore's schedule looks something like this. He gets Cincinnati, who just got lit up by Amari Cooper and the Browns. And then he gets Atlanta again, who he just torched. Then he gets Baltimore, who has been a plus matchup. Then the Denver Broncos, that's tough. And then the bye, and then Seattle, that's tough. And then Pittsburgh, Detroit, Tampa. Those have been good matchups. DJ Moore, 16 fantasy points in half PPR in week 7 against the Tampa Bay Bucks. So, mostly easy matchups. There are a couple toughies in there. So I would say a pretty solid flex play moving forward. I think that he's still going to be limited by the quarterback inconsistencies. PJ Walker, is still not, real talk, he's not an NFL level starter. He may have proven right now that he's a solid backup, but I am not, trusting PJ Walker week in, week out to get DJ Moore, the fantasy points that you want. You can trust that PJ Walker is going to get him targets. DJ Moore, for the last 5 games, 8 targets. In fact, 3 of the last 5 games, 10 or more targets. But, DJ Moore, max 7 receptions, right? There was a game, 4 receptions, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 11 targets, 6 receptions, 11 targets, right? He's barely completing 50 to 60% of his passes, DJ Moore, which is problematic for the type of upside you would want from a player like DJ Moore. So I think there is a limited ceiling for Moore moving forward, but a solid flex play. You can't argue with the volume and the yardage you just saw against Atlanta. So you're firing up as a pretty solid wide receiver 1 in that Atlanta matchup week 10, but I think we're going to have to reevaluate a few of the other games moving forward. Okay. Braden Wagner, who could I get for JT? Well, that's a tough one because Nyheim Hines, there's rumors that Nyheim Hines is going to be traded tomorrow. So I don't know if you got word of that, but there have been at least a couple reports from different sources saying that Nyheim Hines is not only on the trade block, but it's only a matter of time and a matter of to whom and the compensation. Nyheim Hines seems to be on the move. So who could you get for JT? I mean, he's still a solid running back 1. So it depends on what you want. Do you want another running back 1? Because I think Chris McCaffrey is too pricey right now. I think Nick Chubb is a little too pricey right now as well. Chubb coming off a 2-touchdown game against Cincinnati. So I think that you're looking at like that secondary tier. I think Joe Mixon just isn't enough for that, for JT. But you could get Joe Mixon plus a wide receiver, Joe Mixon plus DJ Moore. It would probably be okay. Yeah. If you want to keep him, I would encourage keeping him. I think better days are ahead for JT, but if you are really set on trading JT, you want to make sure you're getting a low end running back 1 plus a high end wide receiver 3, mid wide receiver 2, like that range, like one of those players that could go off, but is going to get targets. And I think DJ Moore fits that profile. So if you can get Mixon and DJ Moore for JT, that's okay. Like I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I would, if I had the preference, I would still be keeping JT around. Would you trade Michael Pittman for Chris Olave? I would. Olave is tending to have good and bad games, whatever. But the target share is really, really impressive for Chris Olave. If you look at what Olave has done so far, the metrics are exceptional. They're exceptional for Chris Olave. Let me pull up the metrics. He's 14th in the NFL in target share, 11th in target rate, number 1 in deep targets, number 1 in air yard share, number 1 in air yards, number 3 in average target distance, number 1 in unrealized air yards. So there is still ceiling to be had with Chris Olave, still untapped potential. Imagine if, I don't know, New Orleans actually got like an upside quarterback, not just like a game manager that is Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston, who they obviously don't trust anymore. He's 9th in yards per team pass attempt and 13th in expected points added. So Chris Olave is very much a target for me, both short-term and then long-term. G1 enthusiast, thanks. Appreciate you jumping on the pod. Hey, everyone. So I see some of y'all are jumping in. If you're here for the first time and haven't yet subscribed, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Really helps the community, helps us grow, pumps it out to YouTube. And today, I've got good news. The community capability was unlocked by y'all. So your interactions on the site, your comments, the videos I've been posting, everything, the live streams have been a supreme success so far. So the channel, the community has been unlocked. I will be making the most of that moving forward. So keep that up. Appreciate y'all jumping in to as well. G1 enthusiast and everyone else. Appreciate you. Okay. If you had to drop one wide receiver out of these 3, who would it be and why? Van Jefferson, Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore. You're dropping Van Jefferson. Darnell Mooney is still commanding the target share. You have to be encouraged by what you've been seeing from Justin Fields the rushing and the passing keeps drives going longer for the Chicago Bears than they were earlier in the season. So yes, I want Darnell Mooney and I want Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore, 3 of his last 4 games, 8 or more targets. You want the wide receiver 2 on Arizona. Van Jefferson, you just can't trust the knees. He's got a lot of knee problems. They're not going to utilize him. There's always been chatter about what other wide receivers can they add, because Van Jefferson could not be trusted as the wide receiver 2 there. So yes, you should drop Van Jefferson. He should not be clogging your roster. Yeah, and as G1 Enthusiast said, they didn't even utilize Van this weekend, and they, I would be surprised if they will use him moving forward. Hunt might get traded. Do you think he'll put up running back 2 numbers? Yeah. Hunt has the upside, some of the highest upside in the NFL, and we even saw that last season. He had a higher running back 1 rate, like weekly rate, than Nick Chubb. That's big. Okay. So he'll put up running back 2 numbers. Depends on where he lands. If he lands on like the Buffalo Bills, you don't trade for Kareem Hunt and don't use him. Yeah, he's not. If he goes to the Rams, he's a running back 1 with the running back 1 overall upside in him. So if I were the Rams, I don't know if running back is the definitive difference between him, but I think Hunt is that escalator from a Ronnie Rivers or a Darrell Henderson. In previous live streams, I had talked about how Christian McCaffrey, isn't that needle mover over Miles Sanders or other running backs. I think Kareem Hunt is that needle mover over, the Darrell Hendersons of the world, over the Devin Singletaries of the world. I think that he is that difference maker because teams have to respect his pass catching. He's one of the most dynamic runners. If he was a lead back on an NFL team, he would be a top 5 back easily. So yes, I think that he is, as good as Christian McCaffrey as a player. Come at me, bros. Okay. But it's that he's stuck behind Nick Chubb, and we're never going to see it unless he is traded. Sean Burns jumping in the chat. Appreciate you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're just jumping in. Is Chuba Hubbard droppable? Well, funny that you might mention that, because Chuba Hubbard is also on my top 12 must-add players for Week 9. We saw what Donta Foreman did, okay, with 26 carries, I believe it was, this past weekend. There's no way they're going to give 26 carries to Chuba Hubbard. The reason why he didn't get those carries last week is because he was injured. He was out. But Chuba is expected to be back. He was asked earlier this evening if he's going to be ready for Week 9, and he says that he feels good about his chances of getting back on the field Week 9 against the Bengals. And as we just saw, the Bengals gave up a lot of rushing yards to both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Chuba Hubbard, I'll have to look at my rankings, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a flex consideration, even playing behind Donta Foreman. Although, also listen to this, the Carolina Panthers declared him the starter before the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was getting majority of carries. He was getting majority of snaps. He was named the starter. So Chuba Hubbard maybe is the sneaky ad here. He is. I would hold on to him unless you're in a very shallow league. Okay, and then he was droppable because I believe in Donta Foreman. I would rather have Donta Foreman over Chuba Hubbard just based on talent, based on pedigree, based on his past production, all of that. But if Chuba Hubbard's hanging out there, don't let him be on your waiver wire. Kareem Hunt was such a beast, but he got in trouble and got sent to Cleveland. Well, Cleveland picked him up, and the former GM of the Chiefs at the time was on the Browns, and so that's where there was that connection. So yeah, he did he's essentially paying his dues behind Nick Chubb right now. Khalil Herbert or Miles Sanders rest of season. Oh man. My heart goes with Khalil Herbert, but unless the Eagles trade for somebody, it's going to be Miles Sanders moving forward. Unless the Eagles make a trade, I don't see why Miles Sanders, who's getting 14 to 18 carries a game, would move out of that top spot. So yes, I would keep Miles Sanders unless, you hear of a trade. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for jumping in. Raw Lens 15. Is it time to drop Gus Edwards for some risk like Nyheim Hines or Kyren Williams moving forward? Gus effectively has 1 week left before Dobbins returns. Even then, questionable. And Gus has no upside in PPR streets. Okay, that's the reality. He doesn't catch any passes. So, with a 1 or 2% target share, that's not going to get there. Nyheim Hines at least has the spike weeks in him. Kyren Williams, I would not be surprised if Kyren Williams is the lead back here in week like 10 or 12. By that time, it's the Rams are just looking for some offensive spark and they cannot find it. They were even starting Ronnie Rivers, who, if you were notified on my channel, I put a video out on, I think it was either Saturday or Sunday, about Ronnie Rivers. And I talked about his pass catching capabilities at Fresno State and how he had like a 10th and 10% and 13% target share, which was in the 93rd percentile of all running backs back then, back in college. So, he was a capable pass catcher, but that's the difference between Gus Edwards and the likes of Ronnie Rivers. Rivers finished with like 4 or 5 receptions in the game. Gus Edwards, however, he's never going to get 5 receptions in the game. So I would roster Nyheim Hines and see where he lands. That would be interesting. Also Kyren Williams. So yes, I think that, rest of season, I would take those players just for their upside. And yeah, that's what I would do. I don't know if it's about Dobbins. I'm not factoring in Dobbins. I am concerned about Dobbins' knee, what it's going to look like moving forward. So we're playing that by ear, but I think the Nyheim Hines and Kyren Williams have a higher upside than Gus Edwards, especially because now Gus is coming off of these soft tissue issues. The hamstring strains tend to linger even if they are fully recovered. Okay, they tend to linger in, hampering performance over the next couple of weeks, even after those players return. And Sean Burns comes back and says, yeah, I own Chubbard Foreman, have Gesicki Gainwell on the bench, want to drop someone for Likely or Ronnie Rivers. Yeah, maybe Gainwell. That's probably fine. Yeah, we'll see where Gesicki goes. That is a good point. Gesicki, has been catching some touchdowns, getting some target share. Can't be hating on the late Gesicki picks, especially people who were like not drafting Gesicki until like the 14th round, like the 15th round. Like he's paying off as a tight end 1. And I talked about him over the summer as, you can't trust him in start leagues, like leagues where you got to pick which tight end am I going to start. But in best ball leagues, I thought he was an absolute smash. He was one of the players that I profiled my Fantasy Pros article of highest upside players. And I said, if the ball doesn't go to Gesicki, if the ball doesn't go to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, it's going to go to Gesicki in the red zone. So, that was pretty good. Killing it. Let's go, Ricky Rice. Appreciate you jumping on the live stream. Crushing. We're having a lot of fun here. Yeah, imagine Gesicki to the Bucs. I love that point, G1 enthusiast. The Bucs could really use, someone. Okay, let's keep her rolling right along here. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe button, and you should also be picking up Justin Fields off your waiver wire. Talked about Justin Fields as one of the top performers last week. Well, now that week 8 is done, we can start talking about week 9, how you should be picking up Justin Fields for week 9. He has increased his fantasy points scored every week since week 3. Week 3, 5 fantasy points. Week 4, 10. Week 5, 17. Week 6, 18. Week 7, 23. Week 8, 26. You see where this is going, everybody. Justin Fields is trending upwards. He hasn't thrown for fewer than 21 passes since week 3. So he's getting a little bit more passing volume, which is encouraging. And he's had 60 rushing yards each of the last 3 games. So that floor is there. If he gets the passing touchdowns, there's ceiling and the rushing touchdown, just like we saw in week 8 against Dallas. And as I said before, this Bears offense and defense, the defense is going to suck. Okay, they just traded Robert Quinn. They just traded Roquan Smith, 2 of their better defensive players. And now they're going to start having to get into shootouts. Justin Fields is going to have to start running and passing the ball more. It's going to go into his hands. This is what you signed up for if you drafted Justin Fields. So you're going to have to just hold on for the ride. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, week 9 is that's who you should pick up. He's my number 1 quarterback pickup for week 9. Do I still drop Gainwell if I own Sanders or Likely or Rivers? Well, let's talk about Isaiah Likely, because I probably would drop Gainwell. Gainwell has not been doing too great, but let's talk about where is he? I had him. Oh, did I not put him on here? Oh, well, I was going to talk about Isaiah Likely as, the tight end handcuff you want. If we hear Mark Andrews isn't there, but Likely, I think you're keeping on the waiver wire unless you've got a deeper league, or unless you hear that Mark Andrews is possibly not going to be available. Because as we saw in week 8, Likely has top 5 upside given just the straight volume and how the Baltimore Ravens use the tight end position in their offensive schemes. The next player that you must add for week 9, Greg Dulcich. Tight end Greg Dulcich has just been crushing since he's returned from IR. Each of the games he's played in a half-point PPR, he scored at least 8 fantasy points. Week 6, 11. Week 7, 8.1. Week 8, 10.7. This guy is like the next Pat Freiermuth. Honestly, this is the rookie Pat Freiermuth from last year. Freiermuth was pretty consistent in getting about 10 points each game, and that's what you're going to get from Greg Dulcich, right? Cortland Sutton is going to have his boom-bust weeks. If you were watching my rankings, I had actually moved Cortland Sutton down pretty significantly. I was the 7th lowest ranker on Cortland Sutton out of over 200 rankers this past week. So, sometimes you're going to have good weeks. Sometimes you're going to have bad weeks from Cortland Sutton. But Jerry Jeudy had, 6 for 60 plus and a touchdown. So that turned out pretty well. But it's really encouraging to see Dulcich go 5 for 87 after coming off a game, or 4 for 87, coming off a game where he went 6 for 51, right? Getting those targets in this Denver offense, of all the things that are not going well for Denver, right? Greg Dulcich has been going well. And this is what we had hoped from Albert Okuegbunam, but there was a lot of rumblings in the offseason that Greg Dulcich was going to play mostly between the 20s, and that Albert Okuegbunam would be like their goal line tight end or their red zone tight end. And, they just said, screw it. Greg Dulcich is going to be the starting tight end for us. So that's what we're looking at for Dulcich. I don't know why my mic went out, but looking at some of the metrics for Dulcich, it has to be encouraging. He's 11th in deep targets among tight ends, so he's running down the field. He does have only 12. Well, he going into week 8, he had 12 targets, but it's encouraging to see just the continued amount of targets. So 17 targets now, and that's going to keep going up. And he's had a 12.5% touchdown rate going into week 8. So Greg Dulcich is a very interesting player for me. And if you need a spot start for tight end, that's got to be, Greg Dulcich needs to be on your radar here. All right, for those who are just jumping in, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, sharing it out with your peeps, putting it on Twitter. Hey, listen to this guy. He's got something to say. Maybe share it with your league mates if you think that, or maybe don't listen to this guy, whatever it is. Appreciate y'all's support in the community we've been growing over the last 5-6 weeks or so. It's been a lot of fun so far. There are just a few more players that you must add for week 9, and one of them is Joshua Palmer. Mike Williams is going to be out for a couple weeks. Keenan Allen is also dealing with, his hamstring issues, which, you would have thought a younger player would be able to bounce back after a couple weeks from these hamstring injuries, like just what we saw with Gus Edwards. Edwards should be able to be back in a couple weeks. Keenan Allen's no young pup. right? There's a lot of tread on those tires. So he's been nursing that since week 1. And we don't know what his availability is going to be here for week 9. So Josh Palmer, who should be fully recovered from his concussion, he should be cleared from the concussion protocol. There's not a lot of encouraging metrics for Josh Palmer. Like, he's not good after the catch. He's not good at catching the ball. Like, he doesn't run a lot of, good routes. His average target distance is not great. His yards per team pass attempt is pretty low. But what's really good for Josh Palmer is he is 23rd in red zone targets. Justin Herbert has been looking at him near the end zone. He has 2 receptions in the red zone, 6 targets. He's 23rd among wide receivers in that category. Other than that, his target separation versus man is 8th. So that's like the other encouraging zone versus man stat. But Josh Palmer is the next man up. If I were to recommend to you any Los Angeles Chargers, it's going to be Austin Eckler and Gerald Everett. Like, those are the 2 players that would slot ahead of Josh Palmer in the pecking order. But give me Josh Palmer as the next wide receiver up. He has been running all of the snaps. He has an 89% route participation. So he's out there, playing the snaps. He's got a 17% target share on the season. I don't anticipate that target share like going significantly up. Maybe it hits the 20%, the low 20s, but he's not going to command a 25 to 30% target share. Let's not get carried away. Okay, it's going to be Austin Eckler where the targets are going to consolidate. It's going to be Gerald Everett, and as long as Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are struggling to get on the field, it's going to be, I think, the Gerald Everett and Keenan or Austin Eckler show. So Josh Palmer is the player you need to add as a flex consideration, but you need to temper your expectations. Is there a running back controversy in Denver? Because Latavius Murray played about the same amount as Melvin Gordon. In week 8, Latavius Murray, 14 for 46, a touchdown, 2 targets, 1 reception, 13 yards. In half-point PPR, 12.4 fantasy points. That's a respectable high-end running back 3. Okay, maybe a back-end running back 2. And I think that's what Denver wants to use him and Melvin Gordon as, right? I mean, it's very clear they don't want to give Melvin Gordon all of the touches and all of the carries. I mean, but Gordon was benched, at least since week 4, we haven't seen a fumble from Melvin Gordon, but Gordon was out carried by Latavius Murray in this game. And he did have 4 targets, 3 receptions. This was Melvin Gordon who got those, but it's not encouraging for Melvin Gordon managers. Latavius Murray seems to be the running back you want. And Latavius Murray, based on my records, he is what percent rostered? He's only 36% rostered. So yes, I think that Latavius Murray is the running back you need to make sure is not on your waiver wire. He is a must add for week 9 and moving forward. So go get Latavius Murray. Sean Burns just said, I just got offered Foreman and Chuba for Melvin Gordon and Valdez-Scantling. I don't think I want anything to do with Melvin Gordon. Yeah, you don't want anything to do with Melvin Gordon. There's only downside with Melvin Gordon. There is no upside. Okay. The Denver Broncos brought in Marlon Mack to back him up. Okay. I mean, if it wasn't for Javonte Williams tearing his ACL, Melvin Gordon would be walking the streets right now, or he'd be on some other club. That's the reality. It's because the fumbling issue was so significant, but torn ACL for Javonte Williams keeps Melvin Gordon on the Denver Broncos. He hasn't had a fumble since. So I would keep Foreman and Chuba. Yeah, I would keep those players for sure. Another must-add player for week 9, Jalen Warren. And you're thinking to yourself, Jaylen Warren, what are you talking about, Bradley? Yes, Jaylen Warren had 9 touches in this game against Philadelphia. He is the third down back. He had 9 fantasy points. He just didn't fall into the end zone, but 6 for 50 rushing, 3 for 25 receiving. Jaylen Warren, look, it may be within the range of outcomes that Jaylen Warren overtakes Najee Harris for this running back one role. In fact, Najee Harris only 8 carries, but he did have 6 receptions in this game. Najee Harris, 8.96 fantasy points, outscored once again by Jaylen Warren. So yes, Jaylen Warren is a very interesting eyebrow-raising handcuff you need to be making sure is not on your waiver wire anymore unless you're in a really shallow league. Jaylen Warren, pick him up. The issue with Jaylen Warren is that he doesn't pass block well. Like his PFF grade is like 44th out of 48 pass blocking running backs. But it's encouraging to see that Jaylen Warren has gotten more touches, or he got more rushes, and he outscored Najee Harris. It's unacceptable from a former first round pick. And I know that there's a viral video going around of Najee like missing a first down. Like he like does this little dance. I don't know if you've seen this, but it was ridiculous that he couldn't get a first down when the defenders were closing in on him. So check out that video clip. Appreciate you guys jumping in the comments as well. Do you think Warren touches our game script, or he might actually take the job? Does it matter? Does it matter? Sorry, does it matter? Jaylen Warren, I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a lot of trouble. They're not a good team. And could they be blown out every other week? Possibly. So game script could very much work in Jaylen Warren's favor. And could he have taken the job? Maybe. Like, I'm not saying it's likely, but it is within the range of outcomes that Jaylen Warren takes this job. Okay. So we have to prepare for that. He's being used more, and especially in this in the running game, and he's been super efficient. Right? I mean, you can't argue with, because Najee Harris was what, 4 yards a carry. There's only been one game where Najee Harris has had higher than 4.1 yards per carry. Okay. Whereas Jaylen Warren has 1, 2, 3, 4 such games out of 8. Yeah. The Jaylen Warren he's doing well. You have to give the undrafted free agent a lot of credit. Should I start drafting Jamal and just be starting Jamal and Swift? I think so. I think those players can coexist. Jamal is the goal line back, and Swift is between the 20s. And Swift will get the PPR points. Jamal Williams will get the touchdowns. It's as simple as that. Jamal Williams tied for the league lead, I think, going into Monday Night Football with rushing touchdowns. Maybe I think Chubb now has reclaimed the lead. But DeAndre Swift is also, a respectable running back in PPR, and he has elite upside. But I wonder if the Lions are going to continue to limit his snaps to ensure that DeAndre Swift is healthy. Okay, Rachaad White or Jaylen Warren. You got to go Rachaad White, I think, in this instance. I didn't put Rachaad White on the must-add players because last week I put him on the list. So he should have already been off of your waiver wire and on your roster. Rachaad White just has simply more upside in a better offense than the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And the Lenny role is so much better. So, yeah, let me go with Rachaad White over Jaylen Warren. Rachaad White also, he may, if you think about like injury factor, who's going to get hurt, Leonard Fournette, Najee Harris, right? What kind of role are they going to have? Rachaad White's just going to take the full role. I wouldn't be surprised if Jaylen Warren is still like splitting with whoever's behind him. Like Benny Snell gets some work too. So there you go. Couple more players. I think we got 2 more on the list, and then we'll call it a night. Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. He only had 1 target, had 1 reception, but he had 2 rushes for a rushing score in this game. Good enough for 7.5 fantasy points. He was coming back off of a concussion. He's working his way back. I do think Khalil Shakir is getting in there, but Isaiah McKenzie just simply has so much upside that if you're in a medium-sized league or larger, he might be a flex consideration, especially now that his bye week is out of the way. So I think his bye week is out of the way. Yeah, his bye week is out of the way. So there we go. Yeah, Isaiah McKenzie is a player you want to be adding. I mean, looking at what he has done earlier this season in half point, there have been a couple games where Isaiah McKenzie has double-digit points. Week 3 against Miami, not 7 for 76 and a touchdown. Week 4 against Baltimore, 4 for 21 and the touchdown. And Isaiah McKenzie is on the Buffalo Bills. And as we know, if you're on the Bills, you got a good chance of scoring a touchdown with Josh Allen throwing you the ball. Mecole Hardman or Isaiah McKenzie? I'm going to go Isaiah McKenzie. You're talking to the anti-Mecole Hardman person on the stream here. There we go. Who is a good trade target for Donta Foreman? I need a running back or a tight end. Like you're trading Foreman away so you can get another running back? I mean, I would just hold on to Foreman. He's a hold for right now. Yeah, I would hold on to him. All right, the last player that I want you to must add right now, 12th player, Sky Moore. And you're saying, but Bradley, Sky Moore hasn't done anything this year. Didn't the Chiefs just trade for Kadarius Toney? This is so counterintuitive. And that's how you're going to outsmart your league mates. Sky Moore was one of the best prospects in this draft. Complete player out of Western Michigan, second-round pick, 54th overall. Just exceptional metrics, exceptional college production. And that's why you can buy low on him. He's going to be available to you on the waiver wire. The Kansas City Chiefs coordinator Eric Bieniemy said that for Sky Moore, he's guaranteeing he'll see more than 2 snaps. So that's encouraging. But at the same time, we saw 4 targets against Tampa Bay. We saw 5 in week 5. We saw 3 targets. Week 6, we saw 3 targets. But it's what you have to understand for these high level offenses. They need time to make adjustments, and the bye week is that perfect time. So you want to make sure that you are picking up Sky Moore before he breaks out, before he has this big, game. Because if you watch the film, Juju Smith-Schuster, right? He's gotten a couple fluke plays to get him touchdowns. Marcus Valdes-Scantling hasn't done anything this year. Mecole Hardman had the flukiest 3 touchdown game of the season. Sky Moore instead, his player profiler comp, by the way, is Golden Tate. But Sky Moore, looking at his metrics, 90th percentile 40-yard dash, 61st percentile speed score. College target share was nearly 40%. Okay, this was a player that a good breakout age, declared early. He's just turned 22. Yes, Sky Moore is like that sneaky player that people were getting all hyped up about in the offseason, but we knew it was going to take time for him to learn the offense, get integrated. I mean, look, Isaiah Pacheco, even as a 7th rounder, isn't getting full snaps and carries despite, outplaying Clyde Edwards-Helaire in many aspects. So, yeah, I think that Sky Moore is your last must-add player of Week 9. Okay, Sean is jumping in some more. Awesome. Yeah, giving Foreman away. I asked you about Lamar, Evans, Pierce for Tua, Etienne, Lamb. Good thing I listened to you. Tua outscored Lamar. Etienne had a big game. Hopefully Etienne keeps balling. And these are the testimonials, people. Make sure that you are hitting that subscribe button so that you're getting the latest info. You're getting your questions answered. I like to do this as much as possible to jump in, grow this community, grow this channel, and make everyone better at fantasy football. That's we all want to make each other better. That's what this community is about. So really happy that it worked out for you. I'm fortunate that that you fell on the right side of variance for this week. So yes, awesome. Thanks, Sean. Okay. Well, that will do it for tonight's live stream. Make sure that you, all of these 12 players are must adds depending on your league size and roster and the fab budget that you have. But there are some players here that are very strong cases for they should not be on any waiver wire, like Latavius Murray needs to be picked up. Garrett Wilson, Rondale Moore, Tyler Allgeier, Garrett Wilson. Those are Kenyon Drake. Those are players that, almost no matter what league you're in, they need to be picked up. And Justin Fields, too, as a streamer moving forward. Yeah, we could see how Sean, how your buddy could get a little salty after that trade. Whoops. Maybe after the season you can share with him the channel that told you about that trade, what to do. But nevertheless, all right, everyone, thanks so much. Have a great evening. Until next time, good luck with your waiver bids. Good luck in the fantasy football streets. Good night, everyone.